This is why you need to pay attention to the escalating tensions between the UK and Russia. Welcome to Just Politic. The UK is on the brink of a disastrous war with Russia. Tensions have escalated dramatically over the past year. Britain's unwavering support for Ukraine has put it on a collision course with a nuclear-armed adversary. The situation is perilous. The risk of miscalculation is high. The UK is sleepwalking towards a confrontation that could have unimaginable consequences for humanity. The UK's involvement in the Ukraine conflict has gone far beyond providing humanitarian aid. British military trainers have been on the ground for years, training and equipping Ukrainian forces. The UK has supplied Ukraine with billions of pounds worth of weaponry. Now, the UK is considering supplying Ukraine with Storm Shadow missiles, long-range weapons capable of striking deep inside Russian territory. This is a dangerous escalation. It is a red line for Putin, who has repeatedly warned the West against supplying Ukraine with such weapons. He sees it as a direct threat to Russian security, and he has vowed to respond in kind. We ignore his warnings at our peril. The Storm Shadow is an Anglo-French cruise missile. It has a range of over 560 kilometers and can carry a 450-kilogram warhead. It is a highly sophisticated weapon designed to evade enemy air defenses. In the hands of the Ukrainian military, it could be used to strike high-value targets inside Russia, including command and control centers, air bases, and even major cities. The UK government argues that supplying Ukraine with Storm Shadow missiles is necessary to help Ukraine defend itself against Russian aggression. They say that Russia has been deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure and that Ukraine needs the means to strike back. However, critics argue that supplying Ukraine with such weapons will only prolong the conflict and increase the risk of escalation. They point out that Russia has a vast nuclear arsenal and that any attack on Russian soil could trigger a devastating retaliation. They also argue that the UK government is not being honest with the British people about the risks involved in supplying Ukraine with such weapons. Vladimir Putin is certainly a strong-willed and uncompromising leader. He is also a shrewd strategist. He has repeatedly warned the West against crossing his red lines in Ukraine. He has made it clear that he will not tolerate any attack on Russian territory or any attempt to overthrow his regime. The West has largely ignored his warnings. They have dismissed him as a blustering bully. They have underestimated his resolve. Putin is not bluffing. He is a former KGB agent. He understands the use of force. He is not afraid to use it. He has already shown his willingness to use military force to achieve his objectives in Georgia, Syria, and Ukraine. He has also shown his willingness to use nuclear weapons. In 2018, he boasted about Russia's new generation of nuclear weapons, which he said could evade any defense system. He has warned that any attack on Russia will be met with a lightning-fast response. He has also said that Russia is prepared to use nuclear weapons if its existence is threatened. These are not empty threats. They are a chilling reminder of the stakes involved in the Ukraine conflict. Russia possesses a vast and formidable military arsenal. It includes thousands of nuclear warheads, as well as a sophisticated array of conventional weapons. In the event of a war with the UK, Russia would likely retaliate with overwhelming force. Russian forces could strike targets across the UK, including military bases, infrastructure, and civilian population centres. One possible scenario is that Russia could launch a cyber attack against the UK. Russia has a highly sophisticated cyber warfare capability. It has been accused of carrying out cyber attacks against targets in the West before. A major cyber attack could cripple critical infrastructure in the UK, including the power grid, communications networks, and financial institutions. Another possibility is that Russia could use its navy to blockade the UK. The UK is an island nation. It is heavily reliant on maritime trade. A blockade could cripple the UK economy and lead to widespread shortages of food, fuel, and other essential goods. Russia could also use its submarines to launch attacks on UK shipping. Section 5. Sleepwalking into Armageddon. the British public unaware. The British public is largely unaware of the gravity of the situation. They are being kept in the dark by a government that is more interested in saving face than in telling the truth. The mainstream media is complicit in this deception. They have largely abandoned their role as watchdogs. They have become cheerleaders for war. The British people need to wake up to the danger that we are in. We need to start asking difficult questions. We need to demand answers from our leaders. We need to make it clear that we will not stand for another pointless war. Time is running out. The drums of war are beating louder. We are sleepwalking into Armageddon. The British public is being misled. The government is downplaying the risks of war. They are exaggerating the threat posed by Russia. They are doing this to justify their own reckless policies. They are putting their own interests ahead of the interests of the British people. Section 6. A deafening silence. The government's information blackout. The UK government is operating under a veil of secrecy. They are refusing to disclose key information about the UK's involvement in the Ukraine conflict. They are refusing to answer questions about the risks of escalation. They are refusing to debate the issue in Parliament. This lack of transparency is unacceptable. It is an affront to democracy. The government's silence is deafening. They are hiding behind a wall of secrecy. They are hoping that the British people will not notice what they are doing. They are hoping that they can sleepwalk us into war. We cannot let them get away with it. We need to demand answers. We need to hold them accountable. The government is claiming that they cannot disclose information for national security reasons. This is a convenient excuse. It is a way of avoiding scrutiny. It is a way of silencing dissent. The British people have a right to know what is being done in their name. They have a right to know the risks that are being taken. Section 7. Global Tinderbox. The wider implications of war. The world is a tinderbox. The conflict in Ukraine has the potential to ignite a wider war. Russia has warned that it will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if its existence is threatened. The United States has pledged to defend its NATO allies. A war between Russia and the UK could easily escalate into a global conflict. The consequences of such a war would be catastrophic. Millions of people could be killed. The global economy could be plunged into chaos. The environment could be irreparably damaged. The very future of humanity could be at stake. The conflict in Ukraine is not just a regional conflict. It is a global conflict. It is a conflict between the forces of democracy and authoritarianism. It is a conflict between the rule of law and the rule of the jungle. The outcome of this conflict will have profound implications for the future of the world. Section 8. The time for talk is over. The urgency of the situation. The time for talk is over. The situation is too dangerous. The risk of escalation is too great. The UK government must immediately cease all military aid to Ukraine. They must stop provoking Russia. They must start working for peace. The alternative is unthinkable. The world is on the brink of disaster. The UK government is playing with fire. They are risking the lives of millions of people. They are risking the future of the planet. They need to stop. The world is holding its breath. We are all waiting to see what will happen next. Will the UK government come to its senses, or will it continue down the road to war? The fate of the world may depend on the answer. Section 10. Conclusion. A plea for sanity. We stand at the precipice of a global abyss. The actions of the UK government, driven by a dangerous combination of hubris and delusion, threaten to plunge us all into the unspeakable horrors of a nuclear war. This is not a time for complacency. It is not a time for silence. It is a time for action. It is a time to raise our voices in unison and demand an end to this madness. The British people, renowned for their common sense and inherent decency, must reject the siren song of war being peddled by their leaders and the lapdog media. We must demand accountability. We must demand transparency. Above all, we must demand peace. The future of humanity hangs in the balance. Let us choose wisely. Let us choose peace. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please subscribe to Just Politique for more in-depth analysis and updates. Together, we can make a difference.